We are not going to have $1 million grand prize.
We are not going to have $1 million grand prize. We are not going to have $1 million grand prize.
Follow along with the live draft board tonight as you watch our pick-by-pick analysis. We're calling the action for the 2024 FFPC Pros versus Joe's IPA League number 2. We're going to see who's going to win a 2025 FFPC Main Event squad. Welcome to the latest special episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott, and we are also joined tonight by the 11-time FFPC League champion, Dave Terpoli, as well. Tonight, we have the second of 6 special episodes for you. It's the Pros versus Joe's IPA League number 2. We're covering it for the entire duration. Shout out to the chat room right now, watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X. Also, connect with us on X at HSFF or at Eric Balkman, at Dave Terp. Check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. Post on our Facebook page, facebook.com/HSFF and High Stakes Fantasy Football at gmail.com is where to reach us via email. As a reminder, tonight at midnight Pacific time is deadline day for the 2024 FFPC Main Event early draft slot announcement. When you pay for your team in full, you're going to get your draft slot in less than a week. That's right. Next Monday, you'll have your main event draft slot. All you have to do is have all your teams squared away by midnight Pacific time tonight. And remember, if you already have a team, $400 off is what you're going to get on each additional team. Square those balances away now at myffpc.com. I'll bring in the board here shortly, ladies and gentlemen, as I'll bring in my co-host here as well. Tonight's drafters from the 1 spot, we have Shane Hallam from Draft Sharks, Ron Chan, the FFPC Joe, drafting number 2. Jared Smola, also from Draft Sharks, picking in the 3rd spot. The duo of Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks is drafting 4th tonight. In the 5th slot is the Stealing Bananas podcast guys. That's Shawn, Siegele, and Ben Gretch. Rob Viera, longtime FFPC player, is drafting 6th. Right behind him is Derek Brown from FantasyPros.com. Derek's actually going to join us at 1:15 here, so about 13 minutes. We'll talk to him about his draft. And then Bill Van Ormer drafting 8th, followed by Scott Connor from Destination Devy, another talented FFPC player. Glenn Lowy, one of the best that the FFPC has to offer. He is picking 10th, is the FFPC Joe. Josh Larkey from Player Profiler picking 11th, and the FFPC Joe, Ryan Cleary, picking after that. Welcome in the 11-time FFPC League champ, Dave Terpoli. What a broadcast we had last night, Dave. And you see this murderer's row of drafters, a lot of talented pros, but some pretty heavy-hitting Joes in tonight's broadcast, too.
The pros dominated last night, in my opinion, but I expected Joes to come back with a force tonight. A lot of well-established players in here. But the pros, so far so good. Nothing too crazy. I mean, pretty standard first round, but it'll definitely pick up here soon.
Hallam ended up taking Christian McCaffrey with the 1st overall pick. No surprise there. Ron Chan goes with Tyreek Hill from the 102. CeeDee Lamb goes to Jared Smola at 103. Back-to-back running backs here, Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall to Magnuson and Marks, and then Siegele and Gretch take Breece Hall at 5, which is where he went last night's draft. A lot of receivers here. Viera goes with Justin Jefferson. I think Rob Viera is a Vikings fan, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown go to Brown, Van Ormer, and Connor. Jameer Gibbs goes to Glenn Lowy tonight at the 110, followed by A.J. Brown and Puka Nacua to wrap up the first round here. A.J. Brown to Josh Larkey, Puka Nacua to Ryan Cleary. We don't see the tight end stack that we did last night, Terp. What do you make of Tyreek Hill going to Ron Chan at the 102?
I mean, I think the top 5 is pretty much set in stone. I think it's going to be pretty much exactly how it is in a little bit different order. I don't mind Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb. I personally wouldn't do it. I just like CeeDee Lamb a little bit better. But it's not a crazy pick. It's not anything that's like too far off the wall. I mean, we all know Tyreek Hill, can break a slate and can easily be the wide receiver 1 this year if all things work out. So no issues whatsoever with that pick. And so far, the first round has been pretty standard. I don't see anything too crazy. Garrett Wilson getting pushed up a little bit over A.J. Brown and Puka. But we also saw Puka fall last night. So,
yeah,
so far, pretty standard first round. nothing too outside the box.
Well, let's get outside the box with one of the best in the business, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. You know him from KFFSC.com. Farrell Elliott joining the broadcast tonight. Farrell, welcome in. First round is in the books. Tyreek Hill at the 102. Garrett Wilson gets pushed up to our good buddy Bill Van Ormer here at the 108. You got to get your guys, and that's exactly what Billy Van Ormer did there.
Billy Van Ormer's got his way of drafting. I love it. And regarding Tyreek Hill, we had a guy from Kentucky last year, Rich Bates. He goes out, he sits down at his first live FFPC event. He wins his way in it because of a top 5 finish here. And he walks in and with the very first pick, take Tyreek Hill. And he took that lead. So Tyreek Hill's going to score points wherever you take him. Good for that draft.
He is, for sure. As a reminder, the Fantasy Pros Championship drafts are filling each and every day, both live and slow. $1 million grand prize, $6 million prize pool over at myffpc.com. Check that out. We have drafts going on tonight. In fact, if after you get done watching this draft, hop in a Fantasy Pros Championship draft and take your shot at $1 million. The tight ends did not go in the first round tonight. That is what ADP would dictate. The ADP that we cite on this show is directly from FantasyMojo.com. You follow him on X at FantasyMojo as well. Darren Armani not only puts this contest together every single year, but anytime we quote ADP on this show, it's directly from him. As Jared Hines, the FFPC Joe, pointed out last night, there isn't really ADP for pros versus Joes because last night was the first draft of PVJ this season. So what I use is the $300,000 FFPC Best Ball Tournament ADP. You can register for that with live and slow drafts going on every single day. $125 to enter. Take your shot at a $300,000 grand prize. Anytime I refer to the ADP, it is from that contest tonight. Sam Laporta goes to Ryan Cleary as he stacks up Nakua and Laporta to start things off here. Saquon Barkley goes to Josh Larkey as he goes Eagle in the first round. Turp, that's got to be your favorite team in the first 2 rounds. That's got to be your favorite team so far, right?
So far, so good there. Josh knows what he's doing.
Can you talk about the philosophy of doing that in a competition like this where you grab the top receiver and the top running back on the same team?
You're just betting on the offense, and my guess is he's going to try to target Smith and Hurts. It just makes the most sense just to go after a team. I mean, I don't think I would personally do it. I think it's just overkill. But, I mean, if the Eagles' offense is as good as people think it's going to be with Kellen Moore after that disaster of an ending last year, the whole season, if you really look back at it, they won a lot of games very, very closely. And that 10-1, start was a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it showed when the disaster of the end of the season happened. So
I am glad that you're not giving that evaluation while adorned in your custom Eagles jersey that you wore last night. Because
not tonight. I got to switch my outfit. I can't wear the same outfit every night.
Well, but I mean,
I thought about putting a Hurts jersey on tonight, but I was going to save that for one of the later shows. I have a nice Hurts Kelly green jersey I was going to wear for you.
I think by the time that I see you in Las Vegas, and you may wear it there, and
it'll be on me for my main draft. Absolutely,
I will comment positively about it.
Take a nice picture. We'll post it on Facebook or Instagram or X or wherever the heck you want to post it. And we'll get a lot of likes.
You're a satirical wonder, is what you are.
But I try. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds good.
It is. You're a wonder at almost damn near everything. But, I think by the time we see you out there in your jersey that you are going to be a Barkley drafter.
I mean, I'll be a Barkley drafter. Exactly it all depends where he falls. I mean, I just don't think you're going to see anything.
You're going to go get him.
I don't think I'm going to get him personally.
You're going to go get him. You're going to be searching for him. You may even move him into the late first round.
What I like about Barkley is, and I like about most of these Eagles, you're not going to see him much in the preseason. So, you're not going to see that Barkley splash play in the preseason where everybody's going to be rolling over it. People are still reading all the Hurts this, and, he's not 100%. And, is he going to go perform the offense type of stuff? And I like that because if that pushes Barkley down, I'm definitely interested. And also, there's so many factors that go in there. Barkley is not a guy that I'm gung-ho to get, but
you will be in September. I see the future.
You could, and you're going to walk over to my main event draft or one of them,
I'll point it out to everyone.
And you're going to be taking a picture, making fun of me if I take.
No, I do. I never make fun of you.
I want you to. I want you to. Bad picks are I come on these shows and I make fun of a lot of people's picks, and now I get tweets and I get DMs every once in a while with people just yo idiot, your team came in last year. It happens.
Well, you're funny, haha, and funny, ironic. You've got all bases covered, Turk.
I try to just.
I was glad to be on the same broadcast with you, and I'll be glad that you have Barkley in your backfield.
And we'll see what happens with what Terp does as we move through drafting season. I know I'll be watching for sure. Marvin Harrison is a player that could make a splash play in the preseason, and his ADP could move up a little bit, although it's pretty high right now. He goes at the 203 tonight. Very on brand. 204 is where he normally goes. Glenn Lowy takes him at the 203 tonight. Travis Kelce, the second tight end off the board, to Scott Connor, followed by Jonathan Taylor, who goes at the 205 tonight. Again, a little bit of slippage here tonight, not as big as it was last night, but Bill Van Ormer gets Jonathan Taylor here at the 205, followed by Drake London to Derek Brown, Trey McBride and Dalton Kincaid back-to-back tight ends here to Viera and to Siegele and Gretch. Nico Collins to Magnuson Marks at the 209. That is a little bit, that's about a half round or so earlier than you normally would see him go, but it's all about getting your guys in this competition. Remember, everybody's playing for a 2025 FFPC main event entry, $2,000 value. However, second place will not get anything. So you are shooting for the moon, threading the needle, so to speak, on this. Derrick Henry at the 211, and then Jalen Waddle at the 212 tonight. Farrell, Waddle gets pushed up about a half round to Shane Hallam, who ends up grabbing him as the 12th receiver off the board tonight, about a half round earlier than where he normally goes in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. But Waddle's a guy that, despite the presence of Tyreek Hill, he should put up big numbers. And if Hill were to miss any time for injury this year, man, Waddle's going to have a massive target share.
He will have a massive target share. I like Adams and Olave better, but to each his own. Looks like he's enjoying a Dolphin stack there.
Yeah, that's the other thing I just noticed. So he goes Waddle and Achane back, and Terp, you could kind of apply the same kind of logic of what Josh Larkey did from the 11 hole with the Eagles skill position players. Shane Hallam does the exact same thing here with Waddle and Achane. Again, betting on speed, betting on offense, and betting that team is going to put up a lot of points this year.
It's a great offense to bet on. Probably the best offense in the NFL, fantasy football wise. I mean, with all the pieces they have, especially the receivers, I mean, there's really no wide receiver 3. I know Jonnu Smith is a popular late selection, but you're not really getting excited about Odell Beckham or any of the guys behind him. I mean, the running back room is a little bit more crowded. You don't know what you're going to get from Mostert, really. Jalen Wright, they drafted. They made, a pretty aggressive attempt to add him, and they did. And Achane we saw last year. I mean, if he's healthy for 17 games, he could easily be running back 1.
Terp, why don't you know what you're going to get from Mostert, and what offense is going to score the most? What offense is going to generate the most yards from scrimmage in the NFL this year?
Ooh.
This year, I mean, the Dolphins is probably the chalkier pick, but I'll go, I guess, on a little bit of a limb and say Kansas City. I just think Mahomes, with all the speed on the outside, Pacheco just an absolute bruiser. Kelsey's getting up there in age, but he's still as productive as they come.
Where do the 49ers fall on that list?
Top 3. I mean, I think the top 5 is right around I'm not trying to be a homer, but I think the Eagles will be in there. Yeah. I also, 49ers. I like the Chiefs, Dolphins.
Will you get the Ravens in there? Can you get the Ravens in there?
I'm a Lamar Jackson hater, but I mean, I'll the Ravens probably will be.
I never have understood you to be full of hate. People.
I mean, it's more of just
you claim to be things you aren't because you're a genuine individual of
1,000%.
I don't understand the Lamar situation, but okay.
I have a lot of prop bets with a couple friends that Lamar Jackson will never make a Super Bowl.
Why? Well, he can drag his MVP trophies into the end zone.
He can take all the MVPs he wants, just don't get to the Super Bowl.
Let me ask you this. Why don't you know what to expect from Mostert?
I mean, he's a year older. I mean, they added Jalen Wright. I mean, if they really believed in him that much, they would have gave him some sort of lucrative extension that would have paid him a little bit more. I mean, you obviously saw Achane break on the scene last year. And Mostert literally had the perfect storm last year. All those touchdowns, do we really think that's going to be the same?
No.
I mean, where he's getting drafted is not a bad spot. I don't own him at all so far this year.
But don't you love him in this kind of contest?
No.
No.
You would?
I love him in any
yeah.
contest.
I
could
mean,
burn me because it burned me last year.
I wouldn't love him in this contest, but I kind of like him. And I mean, based on where he's going, I'd be fine with.
He's at a good spot this year.
Yeah,
where,
exactly.
Like, you could, if you're getting the receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, whatever early. He's definitely a guy that if you could just paint the picture of last year, or at least 75% of last year, you'd be thrilled with getting Mostert. So he's definitely a guy that'll add more.
He has success in bunches. It seems like when he gets loose, he delivers those kind of games. So
if he's the goal line guy again, it's definitely going to be, probably going to be a mistake not taking him as much.
Let's talk about Mostert, running back 26 at the 804. We're going to talk about him in a second, but guys, there's a lot of stuff that happened in this third round that I want to bring up, and we'll start with what happened at the 4 and the 5 spot here. Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks take Deebo Samuel about a half round ahead of where he normally goes, and then right after that, his real-life teammate Brandon Ayuk goes to Shawn Siegele and Ben Gretch as he goes about a half round earlier. Did something happen with the Niners today that I'm not aware of, that both these players go back-to-back about a half round earlier than they normally do? Farrell, I'm missing something here.
Nothing that I've heard.
Yeah.
Nope, nothing.
So it's just, okay, so that these things can happen, and we'll see what these guys do when the signal caller that throws to
here's a question real quick for you. You always ask us a question, so I'll ask you this question. Let's just say we get to late August and Ayuk is back in camp, ready to go. Where does he get drafted?
I was having this conversation, I think, with JJ Zacharyson, and I said he is being drafted right now at a level where you would think everything that's going on, Terp, with Ayuk right now, he should be drafted at a level where he has a position to ascend once he's in camp and once all the feel-good fuzziness is there with him. I don't know how much he can go up from where he's at right now. I think people are drafting him based on, like everything is going to be hunky-dory. So if everything is hunky-dory and he gets signed and gets in, I don't think he moves up that far.
I think
I'm with Scott Hoyt here, who says in the chat that a disgruntled player is never a good mix, especially for a championship team. And I don't think this gets cured overnight. It's been a long time brewing. So does money make it go away? I guess it does. Is it forthcoming? Your guys' guess is as good as mine. But I don't see any reason to draft this player here.
Yeah, I'm out on him. I get it, because those guys are extraordinarily smart players, and by the way, they're doing their own cast tonight, so we won't get them on the program at least during the draft. We might get them on later. But one person we are going to get on is the guy who covers the NFL, fantasy football, and betting for Fantasy Pros, a former FSWA DFS Writer of the Year finalist. You follow him on the X at Debro_FFP. He is Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros. Derek, welcome aboard, man.
What's up, boys? It's a good time. It's a good night to sit here and draft some freaking baseball, man.
That's right. That's what it's all about. You're picking from the 7 hole, quite the rainbow start, pair of receivers, a tight end, and now a running back. How much did these first four picks match up with what you expected to do tonight?
I was hoping to get Chase. My Q kind of went Bijan if he fell. Knew he wasn't going to fall because people love running backs on FFPC. But if he did fall there, he'd have been the top of my queue, only because it had been a weird start from the 7th hole. But Chase was the player that I really wanted at this spot. Like, he's my wide receiver 1 of the season. So honestly, this start is pretty Yahtzee. Like, I was pigeonholing like Chase for my first pick. Second pick was in between Marv, maybe one of the elite tight ends, but I was like, nah, I like where the board is sitting. So with the third round coming around, I was like, I wanted George Kittle or Kyle Pitts. So I'm pretty happy so far, boys.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you be if you're getting your guys? That's what it's all about. The London and Pitts thing. Have you been doing this in your drafts where you're getting both of those Falcons players?
I have to a certain amount. I mean, I look at just that offense itself, we know is going to take a leap. Now, the question is how much. But really in this format, I mean, I've started with a few quarterback, or at least a few stacking partners to where maybe I don't have to pay up for quarterback. So giving myself some outs now is that obviously my first 3 picks all have the bye week at 12. So I'm going to have to get some variance with my middle and late round picks. But This is honestly about how I really wanted to start with this, because the top of my queue is either DK or Joe Mixon, so I'm loving the draft so far.
Does the conversation about Pitts being used all over the field affect your affection for him this year?
No, not at all. I mean, I think that's what the role we should project for him. I mean, I think he's going to move all over the formation, get some time out wide, get some time in the slot, and I think the big thing for him is he could crush. I mean, in this format, they're going to pass more. I mean, well, just in general, they're going to pass more this year with Kirk Cousins. Pitts, I don't think it's crazy to say, like, he's got top 3, maybe tight end 1 overall upside. Like,
I think he does out of that slot. I don't think you're going to see him very wide very much, but
agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
you're going to be happy with that. Even if he doesn't seem to fill that position from day one, I think you're going to be happy with the results. Later on, skinny posts, things down the field. There's a lot of potential there.
You love a good skinny post.
That's true. You do. Derek Brown is now on the clock while he's on the air here on the HSFF Hours coverage of Pros versus Joes. We're looking at your team here: Chase, London, Pitts, Mixon. Pretty good balance so far. 5th round. You could go a lot of different ways here, Derek. What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker here. I know running back's probably going to dry up pretty soon. Looking at where the board is, I mean, I don't have, like, I'm not paying up for a lot of the elite quarterbacks. Could I've gone like Anthony Richardson, taking the total upside swing? I could have possibly gone there, but I kind of feel like I want to get some volume at the running back position, considering I went wide receiver to start.
Derek, in a competition like this, where it is a closed 12-team league, and obviously everybody wants to be the overall Pros versus Joes champion, but there is no prize for that other than bragging rights. When you're in a closed 12-team contest like this, you have the opportunity to get Burrow later. You have the opportunity to get Cousins later. How important is matching up the quarterback with these players when you only have to beat out 11 other teams?
I mean, I think regardless of format, we should always be chasing upside, and that comes through stacking. So for me, I understand it's a 12-team format. I still don't give a shit. Like, I want ultimate upside, and ultimate upside, if the upside hits, that wins in every single format. So it doesn't matter to me.
The other thing, too, with Joe Mixon, kind of a polarizing player this year. I mean, some people would say that he's getting to the wash portion of his career. However, others would tell you that, look, he's going to an offense that should be one of the best in the NFL, with a quarterback who's not extraordinarily mobile, and maybe he checks down to Mixon quite a bit. You get him at running back 11 tonight, so you're drafting him as a top 12 running back here. What are your thoughts, and what kind of a season is Mixon going to have down in Houston?
I think he's going to crush, guys. I think, like, look, we saw everything that Devin Singletary did in that offense last year, and that offense was decimated by injuries at times. This is also an offense that tried at various points to go pace up. They tried to pass more, but injuries, the offensive line kind of just screwed them on both fronts, like, regardless of various points of the season. I feel really good about it because, I mean, looking around now, I had to pull up my ranks because I didn't want to lie to anybody live on stream, but Joe Mixon is my RB7 right now, so I'm immensely high on him.
RB7, you get him as RB11, so that is good value according to the D-Bro rankings, which, by the way, your top 150 is getting released this week on Fantasy Pros, right?
Yes, sir. All 150. I'm going to have write-ups for every single player, and probably when it's all said and done, that's probably going to be the top 200 when all things are said and done, with every player getting written up at the process during the process for Fantasy Pros.
Where's Jaden Daniels going to fall?
Oh, I don't want to talk the board too much, but he's high, man. I've got Jaden Daniels.
I know your love affair with him.
I mean, the conversation for Jaden Daniels right now, I think, starts QB 7 right now. Now that a lot of people are not as high as I am on him, but I love the kid. I think that it would not shock me to see him actualize a top 3, top 5 season. I mean, I'm over the moon just in general. Like, I think people are sleeping on the Commanders' offense.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury there as well. And I know there's a lot of, Theo Greminger, I think, might be related to Ben Sinnott, the way he talks about Ben Sinnott all the time. And you have Luke McCaffrey there, who I know a lot of people are excited about as well. Derek, last year was your first year in the Pros versus Joes Challenge. Is there anything you learned from last year that you're applying specific to this draft this evening?
That it's a total bloodbath. I was DMing you early, Balky, that this room is just, I mean, whoa. I mean, you got to bring a missile launcher to a freaking gunfight. You got to bring a gunfight to a knife fight. This is a sharp room, and some of these things we got to just chase upside because, like you and I were talking about, there you don't get nothing for second place, baby. Right. So you're shooting for first, and really some of this, like, I'm pulling up Mojo's ADP and stuff, and I'm like, in a room like this, it doesn't really matter. You just got to get your
Not
dudes.
at all.
Get your guys, indeed. Who pointed this out? Oh, Al Leach pointed this out, that the quarterbacks tonight are falling a little bit further than the first pros versus Joe's. Derek, you're now on the clock here. You have the opportunity to draft. Yeah, just after we talking about the Commanders, then Bill Van Ormer takes Terry McLaurin on you. You have the opportunity to grab the 6th quarterback off the board. You already have 2 receivers, 2 running backs here. Talk us through this pick that you're making at the 606.
This is one of those things like, do I go with my board? Where am I at on this? I'm probably Terry McLaurin was at the top of my queue. That really smarted. I'm probably just going to continue with just getting volume right now. I haven't been like a running back zealot, but in this format, I know they're gonna roll pretty fast, and I feel pretty good about some wide receivers, especially starting wide receiver. I feel pretty good about wide receivers I can grab in the middle and late rounds.
You are the first team to draft 3 running backs tonight. Mixon, Walker, and now Ramondre Stevenson joining the backfield here. Derek, this is a very good team, very competitive team. And I think, as you said, with so many talented pros and Joes, all you want to do is just have a competitive team. You are right up there, my friend. We will continue to follow you on the X at @Dbro_FFB. Is there anything else that you want to make the viewers aware of tonight besides that top 150 dropping?
The top 150 will be out. I think we're dropping it Wednesday or Thursday this week. So again, follow me on X. Get ready for that. But yeah, we're in the heart of draft season, boys. So all the things and stuff is at FantasyPros. Get using the draft wizard. Get ready for all that, because I'm going to be doing some FFPC Fantasy Pros Championships team as well. Balky, I hope we get to stream some of these. So shameless plug. But no, man, all the content's at Fantasy Pros. I can't wait, man. It's going to be a fun season.
Derek, it's always fun talking to you. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast tonight. Enjoy the rest of the draft and crush the rest of drafting season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Absolutely. Derek Brown, ladies and gentlemen, from Fantasy Pros at Dbro_FFB on the X. So good to hear from him. And, we see 3 straight running backs drafted by him as well. I want to go back to the 3rd round. We're kind of talking about the Niners. Samuel and Ayuk go in the 3rd round, again, about a half round ahead of ADP. Scott Connor sees George Kittle, who has an ADP of the FFPC Best Ball Tournament at 410. He drafts him at the 309 tonight, Terp. So that is really a leap up, and he's another Niner. I feel like somehow, I don't know if the Niners got legalized steroids in their locker room or something, but this is crazy to see all these Niners being pushed up the board tonight.
Yeah, Kittle is the earliest I've seen him go. I said this last night. I'll say it again tonight. I think when these Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingrams go, obviously after the first 5 guys, you're going to see a little bit of panic in the room. Kittle getting moved up in a lot of drafts. Bowers getting moved up. Njoku, Ferguson. These guys are going to continue to rise in drafts because people are going to be a little fearful because there's a drop-off at the tight end position. And I've seen a lot of smart people that are targeting tight ends a lot more than they did in the past earlier this year. Just because, like I said, the Sam Laportas, there's always going to be a couple guys down there that are going to do well, but there's not as many as you think in great spots outside of a couple guys we mentioned, Ben Sinnott, Jelani Woods, guys like that have the upside to possibly get up there. So Kittle's a little early for me, a little rich, but the pairing with Kelsey makes a lot of sense, and obviously getting Josh Allen, and he's a well-established player. He knows what he's doing.
I will say
critical.
I will say too, and guys, I can't remember if we talked about this, but Kittle is pretty high variance from week to week. So this, if you're going to draft them higher than normal, this would be the format to do
100%. He's a guy that could put up 30 and then put up 2.
Right, exactly. Yes. Dave Nowitzki is in the YouTube chat right now talking about Shane Hallam's Draft Sharks team from the 1 spot tonight. What do you guys make of that? Farrell, I'll throw it to you. McCaffrey, we talked about the 2 Dolphins there, Waddle and Achane. And then he gets a pair of AFC North pass catchers and David Njoku, T. Higgins at the 501. And now he just drafted Rashee Rice at the 6-12 as well. Farrell, do you like Shane Hallam's team as much as Dave Nowitzki does?
No, Hollywood, I don't. Now, Njoku, you love the athlete. I just don't love what he does with the volume of catches. And this is a volume of catch business in the FFPC. I think the later tight ends, Ferguson and Bowers, probably do more in the pass catching. I'm not a T. Higgins fan. Never have been. He has a huge following in fantasy football, and I can understand why. But so much, Burrow creates so much. He uses the whole field, sees the whole field. Many quarterbacks, when they have guys like Chase and Higgins, they will hang on those receivers and wait for them to get open. If you're not open in the progressions, Burrow moves on to the next guy. He's third, fourth, fifth progression every play. So that's not a situation about Higgins as a player. It's just the way the quarterback plays the game. I would rather, if I'm going to draft this high, I want to get a guy that quarterback is locked in on.
And here's the thing: the next two picks, I like the structure here. Terp, is Rashee Rice a good value here at 6-12? I'm just going to tell you that I love Chris Godwin at the 701.
Yes,
so maybe
love Chris Godwin.
Okay, all right. So we're all in agreement there. What do you make of Rashee Rice? I'm trying to find his ADP right now for the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. Godwin was a little bit of a value, fell about a half round here tonight.
Yes.
And then you look at Rashee Rice, he normally goes at the 704, so that's about a half round early. But if you want Rice here, you have to grab him where Shane Hallam did.
There's some rumors this week that the suspension's not going to happen this year, and if it doesn't, this is a ridiculous value for a guy who, before all this stuff came out, was getting drafted in the second round early. So, I mean, you get a guy like this in the 6th round. This format, again, like it's a little riskier than other formats, but with Rice, let's just say he misses a game or two. I mean, you're getting a guy that should be getting drafted 2, 3, 4 rounds earlier at this spot. So I always like taking gambles on guys like that, especially a guy with Patrick Mahomes. It's really hard to not like that. And if all the rumors are true and Kansas City is going to throw the ball down the field a lot, you might think, hey, that doesn't help Rice. I think it helps Rice even more because Brown and Worthy are going to stretch the field, and Kelsey and Rice are going to clean up underneath and get a ton of catches. So
all the rumors are true, Terp. Those rumors were started by anyone who owns a television and watched NFL football. But they're going to throw.
You saw last year; it was ugly. That Chiefs offense was. It wasn't the explosive offense you're used to seeing.
Well, you know what? About week 13, Marquez Valdez-Scantling actually caught a pass. That helped.
But Marquez Valdez-Scantling should be catching passes.
Yeah,
He's a
he
very
doesn't. He doesn't
football
catch
player.
passes. But let me ask you this, Terp. We just had our friend with his top 150 on, and I thought you did a very, very good job last night of breaking down what could go wrong at Seattle. It has me really rethinking my love of Kenneth Walker this year. And I put some players in front of him, namely James Cook. And I'm curious with Bill Van Ormeer's team, which I really, really like here. I think that's a running back that he got in this round that could be a top 10 back. Do you guys?
Love James Cook.
And would you have drafted him in front of Walker?
100 times out of 100.
You didn't want to pick into that conversation with our guests, though. But no. I can understand.
I don't. I mean, so player takes is not something. It comes down to structure. Obviously, I'm going to like a little bit players better. Like
I like a structure.
James Cook
points.
James Cook has top 5 upside, in my opinion.
Yes,
so,
yes, I
it's
agree.
Definitely there. I mean, people are really worried about Ray Davis, and I'm drafting Ray Davis just like everybody else is. But I could also see Ray Davis being a little bit of a Tank Bigsby this year. I'm not saying he's that type of player or anything like that, but James Cook was a dominant force when Joe Brady took over. In all aspects. They have nobody on the outside. And, yeah, I know Josh Allen's there. It's still annoying. But if James Cook doesn't fumble the ball, I mean, in the 5th round, like if you're starting off with an elite tight end, a couple of receivers, or a quarterback mixed in there, I would love to start my room with James Cook. Would love it.
Fair enough. That's what I wanted to know. And I like that, too. And I like Balky, I love Van Ormeer's team.
Garrett Wilson, Taylor, Engram, Metcalf, Cook, McLaurin, Watson. Well, we know he sniped Derek Brown with McLaurin there. You guys were very effusive in your praise of James Cook. I don't know if I like him as much as you guys do, but he's certainly here's the thing. He was being drafted a couple of months ago based on kind of where he finished last season, and I thought that was too high. Think about how inefficient he was, and I do worry about the Ray Davis, Josh Allen, inside the 2 or goal line stuff that might affect Cook this year. So I think it gives me pause, but now he's starting to slip to a point where I think that gets baked in. And I think I'm more comfortable taking him where Bill Van Ormer took him tonight at the 508 as running back 15 instead of, running back 10 or 11, again, where he used to be going. He's not going there anymore. And this is a team that already had 2 receivers at the time. You pair Cook and Taylor in the same backfield here, and I think you got something going. And he gets 2 nice receivers after that as well. So that is a team that's
very, very good draft so far. I'm not the biggest Jonathan Taylor fan, but still.
Well, it's good that he's having a healthy offseason term.
Yeah.
Like this
100%. That's all you can ask for. And there's really nobody behind him. There's no threat to his carries. I mean, Trey Sermon, Evan Hall, we're talking about guys who are very average football players who have never been your fear of Jonathan Taylor is Anthony Richardson plays 17 games and steals the goal line work a lot, or he gets hurt. Other than that, I mean, if you look at all of the NFL and all the running backs, I don't know if you have a better fit with guys behind that you're not really worried about.
Right.
Everywhere else, obviously San Francisco and McCaffrey, but Elijah Mitchell's no slouch when he can actually stay on the field, which is not very much. But everywhere else, you look at guys that are a little bit threatening the carries. In Indianapolis, there's nobody besides Anthony Richardson who's threatening Jonathan Taylor. So that's the one thing you got to look at with that player.
Jonathan Taylor went to school at the University of Wisconsin, as did Jake Ferguson, who was the top tight end drafted by our next guest tonight. He's drafting from the 2-hole. He's the FFPC Joe that we're going to bring on right now. His name is Ron Chan, and he is now on the FFPC high-stakes fantasy football coverage of Pros versus Joes. Ron, how's it going tonight, man?
Hi, good.
It had to be awesome being the first Joe to draft tonight. You're drafting in the 2-hole. We briefly talked about it, the Tyreek Hill pick at the 102. Can you take us through what you were thinking about there when you ended up settling on Hill?
Yeah, I usually go with Lamb at the number 2, but his contract situation scares me a little bit. And Hill, with the draft master style, he's scores a lot of points at once. So I think that's why I went with Hill.
Go with Hill there, and then Derrick Henry comes back to you at the 211. I noticed that you went receiver, running back, and then a tight end. This has the makings of a very balanced team construction here, where you're never too heavy on one position early. And I think sometimes that's the way to draft in this format, because Ron, you're going up against 5 FFPC Joes and 6 industry pros. You don't know what these people are capable of, and sometimes I think if you have a balanced roster, it does allow you to grab some value when it falls to you. Have you taken that kind of approach tonight?
I kind of just let the draft come to me in terms of value, but also since I'm at the end, if there's a big run, I could be in trouble. So it turned out great that I have a balanced roster.
Ron Chan, Terp may say this is a problem for you, but I love everything you've done in this draft. These are my guys. Your thoughts on tight end Ferguson, who I said should have gone earlier in this draft. I think that's between he and Henry, it's hard for me to say which one could be the steal of the draft, and your wide receiver could be a number 1 receiver that you picked up in this round. Your thoughts on Ferguson and what you can get out of him?
Yeah, I love him too. I've done a lot of those underdog drafts, and I've picked him in a lot of them. And I was thinking of actually taking him at the end of the 4th, but fortunately, Shane took Joku, and I was able to take Ferguson right after that.
So last year he was around 70 catches. Does he top that this year? Does he push out to more? Is he more of a touchdown maker for you?
Well, behind Lamb and Cooks, it's just I think Dak's going to have a good season too. So, yeah, could be.
Ron, let me ask you this. So Josh Jacobs ends up falling a little bit to you, and you get a nice value there. Farrell asked you about Ferguson. I know you went a little bit ahead of where he normally goes. Ladd McConkey is another guy who is about a half round earlier than he normally goes. Can you tell us a little bit about why you might be higher on Ladd McConkey than some other drafters this year.
Actually, he was in the same grouping, like with Deontay Johnson, Jaden Reed, and Rashee Rice, and I just ended up with him since I think he's going to be the number one for Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and he's going to be, getting a lot of slot catches. So
that's the thing too. And guys, I don't know if we've talked much about this over the last couple of days, but the Chargers offense this year is going to be so wildly different than what it was last year, not only from a coaching style when now that you bring Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman in there, but from a personnel standpoint. No Allen, no Williams, no Everett, no Eckler. It's guys like Johnston and Palmer and McConkey and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. It's the wild west. It's ugly for now, but if
it might be the worst position group in the NFL.
I'm saying that if one or two of these guys ends up taking advantage of the opportunity, it may not be as ugly as we think, too.
And also, if Justin Herbert throws the ball more than we think he's going to throw it.
That's another good point. Absolutely.
If that defense is very suspect, they obviously play Kansas City twice a year, and a bunch of other teams on the schedule can score. If the defense is very suspect, that's going to force them to throw the ball, and that can only be good because Justin Herbert's getting drafted with McConkey, with Palmer. I mean, you can get real creative, and if for some reason, Herbert is chucking the ball around the field a lot more, it could be a great value in drafts.
Ron's going live here, guys.
Yeah, Ron Chan on the clock now. As we look at your team again, balance: 3 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end. You go with another receiver, Ron. Tell us who you picked and why you took him here at the 8-11.
I think he's going to be the number one for Buffalo. Rather than Keon Coleman.
You are up next.
So that's why I took him.
Curtis Samuel is the pick here, wide receiver 46. And if indeed he is the number one receiver in Buffalo this year, that is a really good value here. And especially for the way that your team is constructed here, Ron, the 4th receiver drafted. So obviously he's important to your team, but he's not a killer if he does not pan out to be that number one. Joe Burrow goes right off the board here at the 8-12. Shane Hallam has one more pick at the 9-01. And Ron, you will be back on the clock, which you are right now. I'm looking at the squad right now, a lot of different ways you could go. And I was just going to ask you, is now the time for a quarterback? And Dak Prescott answers that question for me. Why was Prescott the pick of the quarterbacks that were available? Why did you like him best?
I just wanted to pair him up with Ferguson. That's the main reason. And he was like the last tier 1 quarterback left anyway.
So you get Prescott there. You get the stack of Prescott and Ferguson. This is an interesting squad that you're putting together here. Ron, I know obviously you're playing in the FFPC main event. First year playing in the Pros versus Joes. What kind of preparation did you do for this best ball format, knowing that you're not drafting against 11 other FFPC players? There's 6 also industry pros in this draft too that kind of can throw a monkey wrench into your plans.
I don't think of this draft any differently, but I've been doing a lot of best ball drafts in the last month, so that's how I prepared basically.
Ron, do you so are you drafting live or online for the FFPC main event?
Online.
Okay. Well, listen, man, this was a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for picking not 1 but 2 picks live on the air, which we always appreciate. You got a good squad drafting between the 2 pros of Hallam and Smola from the Draft Shark squad there too. So congratulations on a great draft so far. Good luck the rest of the drafting season. Thanks so much for hopping aboard the show, and good luck winning that $1 million this year, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
That's Ron Chan, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Ron. Drafting from the 2 spot tonight as he nails down his Cowboy stack. Ferguson at the 502, Prescott at the 902 as we press forward here into the 9th round. Let's look back at the 8th round here. We'll focus on this, and Aiden LaCory, our FFPC media coordinator, and I were chatting briefly before the show tonight, and he said, what's with this Jordan Love thing, Balky? Is there anything there? From an outsider's perspective, I'm not tuned in to any, sources within the organization here, so I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys. He goes at the 805 tonight as quarterback 9. Doesn't seem like Bill Van Ormer was all that concerned about Love's contract situation. Neither am I. Is it affecting the way you guys are drafting it all this year? Terp, I'll throw it to you first.
No, it's way too early to be worried about any of that stuff. He's going to get signed. Packers are a team that's ascending. I mean, tons of weapons on the outside, young weapons. Obviously, adding Jacobs. The tight end position is pretty solid. They're a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. There's no way they're not going to get this deal done. He's going to get a very big contract, probably the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And he deserves it after last year. I mean, it's just he bet on himself, and it literally couldn't have worked out any better. my guess is he'll be signed by the end of the week. He'll be out there. No worries on Jordan Love whatsoever.
Farrell, you have a lot of experience in this aspect as far as contract signing. How concerned are you?
All you need is love, Bulky.
And by the way, Bill Van Ormer gets that Packers stack there too, Farrell, with Watson and then Jordan Love in the 8th round. Watson Love, so you got to love that too as well. What else I want to bring up in the 8th round that I saw, guys, here? Let's talk about, we were touching on Raheem Mostert earlier, and so I'll bring it up now. Running back 25 at the 807 tonight for Rob Viera. That is the number 2 running back on his roster. The point I wanted to bring up with Mostert is, well, before I do that, Farrell, it kind of seemed like you were leading the witness when you were talking to Terp about Mostert before. It seems like you might be a little bit higher on Mostert than the rest of us. Can you tell us a little bit why?
Obviously I am, but I patiently wait and draft him in sometimes the 8th, sometimes the 9th round. I really have enjoyed each year, and a little bit of the same thing with Derrick Henry in a different analysis of expectation. But everyone thinks the wheels are falling off Mostert every year because he had an early injury history. And I keep talking about this, and I probably need to quit talking about it because I'm not convincing anyone, and it has to be boring everyone who listens. But we're in the same situation with this player as we are a lot of players. They've learned how to deal with injuries. The health and wellness that players are getting now is at an all-time high. You can look up what Derrick Henry is doing to try to stay healthy. He mentions it now at $250,000 is what he invests in his body in the off season. And I think what we see from Mostert is a guy that does not have that long-term wear on the treads, so to speak, like a Henry, because he spent a lot of his early career battling injuries, and he battled them and won. And now these are the kind of guys that know how to play and work through injuries. So I think it's foolish to look at injury history to hold a player like this back.
Fantasy Mojo points out that Derek Brown, our guest on the show tonight, is not holding anything back when it comes to drafting.
Sure isn't.
Holy cow. So Derek came on this program earlier, and he was a little bit jilted about Terry McLaurin going 1 pick before him. He takes Ramondre Stevenson at the 606. He does come back with Jaden Daniels at the 707, so he gets the linchpin of that Commanders offense this year. But then Brooks and Brian Robinson. So 2 pieces of that Washington attack this season. So he's got to be thrilled with that. But Terp, my God, 5 running backs from the 4th round to the 5th round. 5 out of 6 picks are being running backs. How much is too much here?
It's too much for me. 5 guys. I mean, I don't mind the players. If he went Mixon, Walker, Stevenson, even Brooks, but he's going to start getting caught up in the receiver, ugliness here soon. I mean, and my guess is Kirk Cousins gets added to this team here eventually, with the Pitts London already on his team. So I think it's too much. I like the players. I'm a big Brian Robinson fan this year. I think the fit it works out. I guess you can say it's a little bit of a stack with Daniels, even though he doesn't really have the receiving upside. But to me, it's too much. 2 receivers at this through 9 rounds is very, very risky, even in this format.
I think I'd like to talk a little bit about Brooks, Balky, but did you want to say something else?
Well, talk about Brooks, because there's a 9th round running back here that kind of, I just noticed it right now. It kind of surprised me. But let's talk about Brooks. That was the 4th running back that Debro drafted here as running back 24. What are your thoughts on him?
I see, I've been asking for numbers from players. I can't get them from anybody. So I'm going to give you some numbers on Brooks. I see about 1,100 yards, 30 catches, 6 touchdowns. I don't know how that services. That's 1,100 yards. It's all-purpose yards.
Oh, all-purpose. Okay.
I don't know how that necessarily services our drafter here, but I'm willing to defer my evaluation of his team until I see what he does with wide receivers. He's got 2 fantastic wide receivers to start this draft, and there's a lot of receivers I like on the board. Some of them that go later that I like more than the guys that have gone in the 8th and 9th round. So I'm willing to see which receiver he drafts right now.
There it is, Joshua Palmer.
And there you go.
And
and I don't want to hear from anyone that, oh, Joshua Palmer's a smart pick because they don't have anyone else. Yes, they do. Joshua Palmer's a very good pick. He finished very strong in the season. So here's some more numbers. 85 catches. Terp's right. They're going to throw the ball. 85 catches to Palmer. He maybe pushes that 1,000-yard receiving situation. I think this is a great pick right there.
He's the number 1 receiver there.
Barney Newkirk on Facebook chimed in earlier that Ladd McConkey could be the new Wes Welker. Now, I don't know if skin color has anything to do with that, but it's a possibility. But 85 catches, Farrell. Holy cow. That makes him an incredible value here in the 10th round over Ladd McConkey in the 6th, right? I mean, how many? What if we're doing numbers? What does McConkey end up with for
similar, and perhaps better at the score? And Brother Newkirk, I appreciate what you're coming up with there, but McConkey is 6 foot tall and plays taller. He's going to have to see if he can beat press coverage in the NFL. My bet is he can, and my bet is he's very young. That body's going to change, and he's going to get up to 200 pounds eventually. He's listed as 6 foot tall, plays taller. Welker is 5'9", and that was a generous listing. And he sure as hell was fun to watch. But two different players. But I tell you what, buddy, you might be at the end for fantasy football purposes. They may put up the same numbers.
Derek Brown chiming in on the YouTube chat right now. He says he's taking what the board gave him. The 7-8 turn crushed his queue of the receivers that he wanted. And you look at this is the other thing to point out. Yes, this is best ball, but it's FFPC lineups, right? So you own it. The system will only optimize your top 2 receivers every week. After that, it could start 4 running backs for you. So if you load up here and these guys stay relatively healthy for the most part, or at least some of them do, this could turn out all right. He gets Palmer here in the 10th round, and obviously we'll see what he does in the second half of this draft moving forward with maybe another tight end, maybe 2 more tight ends and some receivers here. Probably needs at least 1 more. Well, for sure it needs 1 more quarterback as well, maybe 2. But Derek Brown's team is definitely one we'll be watching here to see how he finishes the job here from the 7 spot tonight. Go ahead, Farrell.
Balky, was talking about some of these Carolina players that are going later in the draft. I asked Terp, which offenses he saw gaining the most yards. And I agree with his group of top 5. What does that mean for us in fantasy football? And I think the Carolina Panthers are definitely at the other end of the spectrum. 2,000 yards more in offense for the 49ers last year than the Panthers.
It's crazy if you think about it.
And so you might begin to look at a Panther and say, wow, he's got such skills.
But they should improve this year. If Bryce Young improves, new coach –
Let's try to get some players on some good teams.
I agree, but when you're taking shots 10 on, you're going to be looking at like Panthers guys, Broncos guys, Patriots guys, and they might all look ugly, but guys like Javon Baker and Troy Franklin and Xavier Leggett and Adam Thielen, guys like that, DeMario Douglas, we can keep going on the list of players. Polk. I mean, all these guys could be league winners if things falling right, and where you're getting them, they're worth the risk, especially if it pans out. I mean, you could be sitting with Puka or Kyron Williams next year, really, really cheap.
Well, and that's why they're players that are available in these double-digit rounds. But I'll tease the 11th round. Wicks just goes in there. There's a player that I see with unlimited high side on a very good team.
I put out a tweet today on Wicks.
You did what with Wicks?
I like Wicks. I've drafted Wicks a lot, but every single fantasy football player loves Wicks this year. There's not
but they're only drafting him in the 11th round, and they're a little confused.
Which to me is a red flag because why isn't he moving up more?
They're confused about who the guy is in the Green Bay, and
everybody is on this guy. And Tim
Balky should figure out that confusion for us because
the coach speak,
broadcast
coaches are coming out.
We're not.
All right, here it is, guys.
I
just posted Terp's X post in the YouTube chat right now.
You didn't believe him
about Dontavian? No, I saw it today,
Oh,
and so I just wanted everybody else to see it. Now, Dontavian Wicks in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, on average over the last few days, Dontavian Wicks 1304. So he moves up 2 rounds tonight to Jared Smola, who grabs him at the 1103.
Because Terp's been posted.
But yes, yeah, exactly. Now
he mix it in every once in a while.
Right, exactly. So now, in regards to Wicks, I love his talent. I love the player himself. I love the fact that this guy crushed it in 2021 and then had a huge, massive amount of changes in 2022 that really affected his stats and his performance that season at Virginia. He falls to day 3, and he ends up being drafted by the Packers in the 5th round. And he's adding to that stable of, solid receivers that Jordan Love is going to have the option of throwing to. And Wicks is a guy that Jordan Love has already singled out as a player that could have a monster season. He was asked about this in a Bleacher Report interview, and Love said Wicks first, and then he also mentioned Jaden Reed later on in his answer, but Wicks is the guy he said first. I think this guy is going to keep rising. I know it's a 2-round jump tonight, but it would not surprise me at all if he just settles in, Terp, as a 10th or 11th round pick. And I'll tell you this, I love the Packers. Ain't no way I'm taking Wicks that early. I cannot.
He's not better than Christian Watson. He's not better than Jaden Reed. Romeo Doubs is a coach favorite, a Love favorite. He's not just going to go away, even though he's not a guy that I'm targeting a ton. So
where does that leave Wicks? You got to define your use of that very nebulous word better. What is he not that those players are?
Christian Watson with 2 good hamstrings is a top 10 receiver.
Agreed.
That's okay.
Let me push back on that a little bit, because let's say Watson is healthy this year, and let's say he's crushing it. I mean, they still have other options to throw to on this offense. They still have Jacobs and Reed and Dobbs and Wicks and Musgrave and Craig. Like, I don't know if the Packers are unbalanced enough, even if Watson is healthy, to pump the ball into him, Rodgers, Devontae Adams style. That would be my concern. And that's even if Watson's healthy too.
That's possible. I mean, I understand your logic there, but talent-wise, I mean, we've seen way more from Watson than we've seen from anybody else. And I like Jaden Reed, and I'm not discounting Jaden Reed at all. I think he is a very good player, but he doesn't catch anything. The only thing I worry about Watson, I said this on the last show, and I say it on every show I can, and we all know I'm a Christian Watson apologist, and I love him more than anybody. If he is healthy this year and plays, let's just say 14 games, 13, 14 games, he is the best value in fantasy football in the first 10 rounds. And it's not even close. He easily can break
who the best value is after that, Terp, and that's what keeps
you're gonna say Wicks, but Christian Watson's getting there, Wicks isn't getting there.
No, I'm not, because I'm living it. This is our second Pros versus Joe's, and it's already been written in stone. He owns the middle of the 11th round. Ezekiel Elliott, right there, owning the middle of the 11th round. I can't wait till the next draft.
Like I said with Elliott, he's a guy that in best ball I will be drafting in redraft in the Fantasy Pros in the main event. I will be drafting.
I'll tell you what, when you draft
at the right price,
post it to this.
I will post it. I will tag you. I will tag both of you. It has not happened yet, but it will happen. I promise you that, because if my guess is I'll still add somebody. It just makes too much sense. But if they don't. Even if they do, I still think Elliott has a role, and it's going to be an ugly role. But in that offense, I mean, they don't have that many weapons.
All right,
we
need to talk about Rob Viera's team here from the 6th spot tonight, because I'm noticing a trend on the squad. You just mentioned the Elliott pick, Farrell. Let's look at some of these other guys he's taken that it seems like I don't want to say a lot of people are down on these players this year, but I feel like the narrative that is surrounding some of the players that he's drafted has not forced him onto his team, but he's getting good values. There's a lot of people that don't like Kyren Williams this year because he's dealing with the foot injury, the rival of Blake Corum. Rob Viera takes him at the 306. Keenan Allen no longer catching passes from Justin Herbert. Keenan Allen is catching passes from a rookie, also on the same team with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Rob Viera doesn't care. He takes him at the 607. We already talked about Raheem Mostert. Farrell, I know you like him quite a bit. Obviously, Rob Viera does as well. He takes him at the 807, but there's a narrative out there of people saying that you shouldn't be taking him there. Zach Moss at the 906. Chase Brown is there. Zach Moss is not a pedigree guy. He goes to Cincinnati for money, but not massive money. Rob Viera grabs him there. TJ Hawkinson coming off the ACL. Are you sensing the trend? TJ Hawkinson coming off the ACL. A lot of people do not want to touch him this year because they don't know when he's going to be ready. Viera takes him as his second tight end. And obviously we heard the story about Ezekiel Elliott. Rob Viera has won a ton of cash playing in the FFPC. He is as dialed in as anybody, Farrell. And look at this team he is assembling, the island of misfit toys that just might bring home the bacon in this league this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is it about this team? What player is it about this team, Bonky, that you think is going to put him over the top?
Well, I think the combination of grabbing all these guys that the fantasy community, by and large, is down on. I think if a few of these players hit, they're going to come through big time at their ADP, and they could carry it. I just mentioned Kyren Williams, a player that was going, at the first 1-2 turn in February. Now he's going in the mid-third. Yep. Keenan Allen, a guy who was going in the 3rd, 4th round before the Chargers traded him. Now he gets him in the 6th round. Raheem Mostert in the 8th round, a guy who scored 20-some touchdowns last year. TJ Hawkinson, who we know is starting on the PUP list, but he could be coming back. I think it's just a combination of all these things where he is zagging where everybody else is saying that you should zig. He zags, and he ends up getting all these players. Again, what could be below market value. And I don't think it's one single player, Farrell. I just think it's the combination of these guys. Okay. If 2 or 3 of them hit, he's going to be in the mix.
Yeah, and his first 2 picks are just solid gold, and you're right about Williams. And I'll follow up by saying that Flowers, we just don't know about Flowers yet. And I like everything that is pointing in the positive direction for the Ravens. So Flowers is that guy. And if the quarterback in Chicago does anything, Allen's going to pull him along. He's so young. Allen is so gifted. That's one of the most interesting stories that we might be reading about as the season develops, is what those 2 players mean to each other. I'm not so crazy about his quarterback, but that's okay.
A lot of guys hate Flowers this year, and it's very confusing to why. I mean,
what did you say? What did you say, Terp?
A lot of guys don't like Flowers this year. I expect him to be drafted higher.
Crazy.
What did you see at the, he broke out last year, and obviously he got a report with Lamar Jackson. Everybody remembers a fumble against the Chiefs, but he was pretty much the only guy that showed up that day. So it doesn't make any sense to me why he's getting drafted. I mean, it looks like he went in the 5th round. I mean, people saying, well, Bateman's going to take the next step. We've heard this story before.
No.
Mark Andrews is back. I mean, you saw the piece that came out today on Rashad Bateman making all these catches in camp. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've all been there before. We've all drafted Rashad Bateman and paid for it. And now he's free. And it's like, obviously you'll mix some teams in there because the talent of the player is still there. But, do we really think that Lamar Jackson is going to be throwing the ball around the field all the time with Derrick Henry? I don't. So to me, it's Andrews, Flowers, and that's it. And Flowers,
what Atlanta is doing with Pitts, you're probably going to see Baltimore do a little bit of that with Likely. And
I don't think Likely's going to go away.
Is even if Bateman gets to what he's supposed to be in that offense, he goes from 32 catches to 55.
Exactly. So he comes at a little bit of a value, but he's not winning you.
No.
$1 million or some of these big, $300,000 in these bigger contests. Is there a possibility that he takes the next step and finally realizes his potential? Of course, there's always a potential. He's a talented player. I mean, we all drafted him very high a couple of years ago, for a reason, but we just haven't seen it yet. When the lights come on and the regular season starts, I don't care what he does in training camp. these are the pieces where, Rashad Bateman's going to move up a couple rounds now because of today. And that's where you got to watch the traps of the preseason, because these guys are just, putting these pieces out to get a little clickbait. So when they see stuff like this, people, novice, regular drafters, even us that draft millions of leagues, we see this and we're like, oh, this is Rashad Bateman's year. And you move them up a little too far, and then you're making a mistake.
I can't, I don't understand what world I'm living in where I go on X today and I see another John Harbaugh quote about how Bateman's going to be a top receiver in the league.
That's what I'm talking about. Exactly.
And it's crazy to me. Now that could happen, but FFPC best ball drafters are not taking this guy until the end of the 17th round. Now, to your point, Terp, he's probably going to be pushed up higher than the 17th tonight. We'll see what happens. But Zay Flowers,
not a bad pick. He's not a bad pick in the 17th round.
He's fine there.
Yeah, he's fine. But
I will mix him in this year at that price.
100%. He has the talent of, like, if you look at a 17th round draft pick, he has the profile that, if everything works out, could, be a steal where he's being drafted. If you're telling me he's getting drafted in the 11th, 12th, 13th round, that's way different.
Flowers Farrell is another guy that we could have thrown in there too. Permar talking in the YouTube chat right now saying half of Flowers' catches were screens last year. He says he still doesn't know if Flowers is any good. And
we don't need to know if he's any good. I mean, they're clearly trying to get him the ball.
Right, and then what about Prince Caspian, who points this out? If Lamar Jackson is deferring to Derrick Henry because Henry's crushing it, maybe Lamar Jackson's a disappointment this year. And if Lamar Jackson's a disappointment this year, there's the trickle down effect of Flowers.
And I think that has a better chance of happening than people think. I think it could.
Permar's been on fire with a lot of things. He's hitting a lot of things right. He's not right about Flowers. All you have to do is look. Flowers is the Tyreek Hill in waiting.
Wow.
Of fantasy football. And the reason there were so many screen passes last year is because what he can do, you go back and look at his college film, what he can do when he has that ball in his hands is magical. And we're going to see a little bit more of how they're going to have to defend the Ravens this year. Ravens are a damn good team last year. They've done a lot of moves to make themselves better.
All right, guys, I want to go back to something somebody earlier said on the YouTube chat when we were talking about the Niners, right? And we're talking about how Ayuk gets pushed up, and we're a half round. We're talking about how Samuel gets pushed up a half round. Scott Connor takes George Kittle nearly a full round ahead of where he normally goes. And here it is, Albert Leach. I'm going to post it right now. He says if Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle pay off their draft slots, then Brock Purdy is the steal of the draft where he usually goes. Now, the Niners are getting pushed up big time tonight, obviously with Ayuk, Samuel, and I just mentioned Kittle getting pushed way up. Brock Purdy normally goes at the 908 in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament.
It makes no sense.
He goes at the 1202.
He goes
at the 1202. So all the other Niners not named Brock Purdy get pushed way up.
to a guy with no 49ers.
To a guy, yes, naked quarterback there for Josh Larkey. And he's like, well, what the hell? Everybody else is taking these Niners. I might as well just join the party. McCaffrey couldn't get pushed up anymore because he went at the 101. And then Brock Purdy essentially falls 2.5 rounds to the 1202 tonight, which is wild.
Crazy.
So you guys look at this. Quarterback 13 is where Purdy went. That was the 1202. Quarterback 12 went at the 904. That was almost 3 rounds of no quarterbacks being drafted.
It's like people forgot about the position.
Right, exactly. And then Larky's like, you guys realize Purdy's still out here. I'll grab him to back up Jalen Hurts. I have no explanation of there's a lot of Niners love here tonight. And then the guy who did not push up any of the Niners ends up taking Purdy 2.5 rounds past ADP.
If I'm drafting Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels or even Kyler Murray, I would love to have Purdy as my number 2. Presents massive upside, and obviously you have the injury risk of the 3 that I mentioned before. There's really no downside to the player. I mean, we all saw last year, for all people who didn't, we all talked about Trey Lance a couple of years.
No, we didn't. Not all of us.
People were for sure.
Yeah. People were really hyped on Trey Lance, and then he got hurt, and everything kind of faded away. And Brock Purdy took the job, and he's been ridiculous since. And with that offense and Kyle Shanahan, I talk about Ayuk, and I talked about Ayuk earlier. But let's just say the 49ers are more competitive in games this year. Their defense is a little bit worse. Let's just say they're not in the blowouts and the games where their scripts are better. Who does that help? That helps Ayuk, that helps Debo, that helps Kittle, that helps McCaffrey. And most importantly, the best value right now is Brock Purdy. So I don't understand that Brock Purdy pick falling where he is. I mean, if you look at the guys he's drafted around, like, I don't know how you don't take him over guys like Tua, over guys like Kirk Cousins. I get structure and all that stuff. I'm just saying one versus one player, Trevor Lawrence.
You can make a similar argument about the player that tonight that went just right behind him, Jared Goff. But I love the argument with Goff. What clearly separates him is how well he does at home. If you can just look at him in this kind of format with his home games, he's likely to push Josh Allen as well.
I think this year is the difference from a lot of good teams versus a lot of average teams is going to be the quarterback position. You gotta pick a way to go. Are you going to be the guy that takes Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar, Mahomes, or are you going to wait to the second tier and get the upside of Anthony Richardson, the upside of Kyler Murray, Jaden Daniels, the hype, CJ Stroud with 3 big-time receivers? Are you going to wait for the Burrow, Love, Prescott tier? Or are you just going to just totally punt the position and start your team with a Goff or a Purdy or a Trevor Lawrence or a Tua Cousins type of situation?
I think I've had the personal habit of drafting that quarterback too early in so many of my drafts this year. And Richardson, who I absolutely love, I drafted him today. But Terp, it feels like, I guess I got him in the 6th round as well, but that feels like I'm just drafting one of the guys from the 4th and 5th as well. He's a top tier quarterback. But
we all said if Anthony Richardson stays healthy, he's quarterback 1. It's very, very likely if he plays 14, 15, 16 games with his rushing upside, with the explosive offense that they do possess there in Indianapolis. I think he's just going to really take the league by storm if he gets healthy. But then there's also the fear of what happened last year. I mean, as good as he was, before anybody got to really realize and get him in the lineup, it was too late, and he was hurt now for the season. So that's the risk you take, and I think a lot of teams this year are going to make the mistake of taking 2 quarterbacks like back to back in redraft leagues, and then you're playing Russian roulette with the quarterbacks each week, and every matchup might look good, and then let's just say like Caleb Williams and I don't know, Tua, you take them back to back as your quarterbacks. I mean, how do you decide who you're using every week? Every matchup's going to look good with the receivers both team possession. So you're going to be behind the 8 ball. Most times you're going to make the wrong decision.
Well, you're going to take Goff and play him at home. That's what you're going to do.
Anytime Goff's at home, or in one of those A+ matchups, or in a dome type of situation, you take Goff. If he's outside, nope.
No.
Guys, let me bring to your attention Team 10 and Team 11. Glenn Lowy, the longtime FFPC.
One of the best in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the Joe drafting from the 10 spot. Josh Larkey is from Player Profiler. He's drafting from the 11 spot tonight. Now, Josh Larkey, probably not a little known fact. It's just a fact. Dude lived in the Denver area for years, right? And he ends up grabbing Javonte Williams at the 9-11 tonight. Javonte Williams has been in the news, reported by several Broncos beat reporters, or I shouldn't say several, but at least 2. So multiple Broncos beat reporters, that he might be fighting for a roster spot with Samaje Perine, and that Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin have already locked up the spot on the Denver Broncos backfield. To take that a step further, Jaleel McLaughlin apparently has been running with the ones. Jaleel McLaughlin is a player that's really been hyped up by some of the beat writers there. He goes to Glenn Lowy at the 12:03, 3 rounds after Javonte Williams goes. Why am I saying this? Permar points out in the chat that he thinks Javonte Williams is going to be released and he's going to sign with the Cowboys. Where does Josh Larkey now live? Dallas, Texas. So perhaps both these guys are tuned in onto what the Broncos and Cowboys are doing. I know that's a lot of connecting the dots. I feel like Charlie on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's got the big picture in the background with all the things connected. But it is interesting that after the news today about Williams in a fight for a roster spot, Larkey still takes him at the end of the 9th. McLaughlin Farrell falls to the early 12th. How would you be handling those guys, and what do you make of the way that Lowy and Larkey handled them tonight?
I'm still going to take Williams because if Permar is right. I don't know if it's Dallas, where, but Williams is a very good running back, and he's going to after an injury and the year he had last year, I see a bounce back year for him.
He was a really good running back.
I don't believe Denver will let him out of the building, and I would be surprised to see that. I think if they're playing, if they're working with the depth chart this early in camp, it's probably to see what the other guys can bring to it. So I'm not concerned about him leaving Denver.
I mean, I'm open to being wrong here, but it just doesn't seem like a prudent decision to let a Jag, in my opinion, in Samaje Perine walk out the door, or keep him on the roster and let Javonte Williams walk out the door. A guy who is pedigreed, a guy who's shown his talent, a guy that high stakes players loved until that knee injury, and now he's a year plus past it. I mean, I'd be very excited to see what Williams could do this year. And to keep Perine over him, again, I could be wrong. It just doesn't feel like that's going to happen. Although the beat writers are tuned in to what's going on with the roster.
I think the beat writers got a lot of imagination.
I agree. I mean, I don't own any of Williams this year, and I don't probably plan on it as the thing progresses. I don't care where he gets traded to. You have to look at it from another perspective. If a team that is not really going anywhere is going to give up on I think he's 25 years old. Year-old running back. I mean, what makes you think he's going to be better somewhere else? And everybody says Dallas this, Dallas that, and that's the popular name. But I don't think they're giving up on him. I think you got to see what's there. If he's last year, he was terribly, terribly inefficient, like just awful. In all aspects of all metrics, he was awful. But he was also he was coming off an injury. So you give him another chance. They keep talking about Estime, and Jaleel McLaughlin has been the hype of camp so far, but he's also really small, and we don't know if he can pass block, doesn't play much on third down. He's a guy that I own a ton of in best ball just because he's going to catch a ton of passes, but Estime is the guy that is the value right now in drafts because he's the hype. But Javonte Williams could get to a point where he's draftable for me. I mean, I don't think probably he'll get there. If he's getting drafted before round 10, I'm out. There's not anything positive coming out on him, and I don't care where he goes to. I don't think it's going to get any better. Even Dallas or some of these other juicy running back spots. So to me, it's Estime where he's getting drafted, and Sean Payton's an absolute wild card when it comes to anything he's doing right now.
That is true.
He was a wild card last year. He's going to be a wild card this year. Obviously with Bo Nix, who a lot of people didn't love. The running back position is wide open. The receiver position is wide open. Like he hates Marvin Mims, but he talks about Marvin Mims all the time. That team is, if you can figure it out, you could really probably find one or two players that can make you a lot of money. But good luck trying because there's nobody outside of Cortland Sutton who, for all we know, might be traded before the season starts. That could be, a fantasy force this year.
Mm-hmm. Great points on the Broncos for sure, Terp. And I think the guy to keep in mind here is Sean Payton. Nobody knows what he's capable of, and we need to be prepared for anything. Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks were prepared for everything tonight when they're going up against the Joes and the Pros in this draft. They're drafting from the 4 spot. They go all running backs and receivers in the first 7 rounds, Farrell. What do you make of their draft after that? From rounds 8 through 15, they not only took 3 tight ends, but they took 3 quarterbacks there as well. Komet, Musgrave, Okonkwo, and then Caleb Williams, Tagovailoa, and Geno Smith. So you got 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends in the span of 8 picks there. That's an interesting – we don't normally see builds like this, but we see one tonight, Farrell. What do you think of it?
Are they going to come on the show and talk to us tonight?
That's very possible. I don't know.
Same thing happened last night. If you wait this late on tight end, you're going to have to draft more of them. We had a drafter that drafted 4 guys last night and try as hard as we could. Terp, nor I, nor you could find the tight end in that mix. This looks a little better.
This one's a little bit better.
You're giving away a lot of draft capital to have these players. No, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, in Terp, when you look at it too, 5 receivers in the top 7 rounds: Collins, Samuel, Moore, Cooper, Reed. I get it. Is that something you would do where you hit those receivers early and then ignore it? Now it's round 16 and they still have those same 5 receivers on their roster.
I don't mind what he did at all. I mean, the tight end room doesn't really excite me outside of Musgrave. Receivers obviously are very good. The only thing quarterback, Caleb Williams absolutely makes a lot of sense with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. I think he reached on Cole Kmet. I don't think that's a player that I'm targeting at all this year. There's just too many mouths to feed there, and I just don't think the tight end is going to be, the guy that's going to, flourish in that offense. The Tua pick is confusing me a little bit. I don't understand it. Based off the structure of the team, I feel like Deshaun Watson would have fit it a little bit more with Amari Cooper. We all know I love a good stack. Geno, is fine if you want to add a third quarterback. I don't feel like you can, really go wrong there. Gibson and Singletary are good picks. They're not exciting picks. There's guys that
I think Singletary's an exciting pick, Terp, in this one.
I think Singletary will be out of a job by week 6.
No,
I don't know who it is a different story. Could it be Tracy? Could it be Gray? Could it be somebody off that we don't even know yet?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Singletary is he's a good player, but I don't think the Giants, they might not say that, but they need to win. And if they don't win, Daniel Jones is out of there, and that team's just totally in rebuild mode. So
I'm glad that this drafter didn't hear about your assessment of Singletary before he drafted him, nor your assessment of Aaron Jones last night. Because then he would just, he would just quit drafting right now, put it on auto pick, say the hell with it.
Well, guys, I'm not targeting a ton. I mean, if I had to pick one, it would be Aaron Jones. But, I mean, Singletary, to me, he's going to be okay and serviceable for the first couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But once those younger players get more acclimated with the offense and maybe, I
love it when you look into that crystal ball and it's all cloudy and dirty.
It can be all cloudy and muddy.
Like the Giants.
Devin Singletary is
you don't care for the Giants, and any player that's ever hurt himself is no longer any good. And I really, the thing here that I think you really don't like about the Singletary pick is it could have been Ezekiel Elliott. And I know that's a problem.
I would take Ezekiel Elliott over Devin.
Yeah, guy, this Balky, can you believe this, man?
Things change. There's a lot of players that I'm on this year. Last year,
I would rewatch last year,
anybody that took Derrick Henry.
It's just
if you rewatch last year, anybody that took Derrick Henry, I pretty much called him an idiot. This year, very high on Derrick Henry. There's a lot of other players. Zeke.
Hey, our old pal Jared Albert just showed up. He's coming to Kentucky there.
That's awesome to hear. And we've been talking a lot about Craig Magnuson and Tim Mark's team here over the course of the last few minutes. Well, instead of talking about it, why don't we talk with one of the guys that's putting it together from the Magnuson Marks team right now? Let's bring him on. Craig Magnuson, welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour Pros versus Joes coverage. Were your ears ringing, man? We start talking about your team, and then all of a sudden you pop on.
Well, you were kind of giving us crap about getting on, so
yeah.
Way to show up.
That's awesome, Craig. When you look at your squad,
did you get Craig to move the camera? He's, this.
Oh, is the camera not good?
Yeah, well, we just can't see you. There you go, buddy. There you go.
Are you seeing too much of me? Is that the problem?
There you go.
Perfect.
Eyes on you, brother.
Craig, let's talk about the first 7 picks that you made tonight, all running backs and receivers. How much was this a part of the game plan when you and Tim were talking about building this team? Was this the idea to go wide receiver heavy early and pepper in a couple of running backs?
Once we made the commitment to Bijan, then it became a wide receiver build after that. And we kind of ended up where we are. Oh, now we're on the clock, I just heard. So.
Yep, you're on the clock at the 16:09 as Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks. We talked about this earlier. 5 receivers in the first 7 rounds. Still have those 5 receivers, 4 running backs, and then obviously the 3 quarterbacks and the 3 tight ends here. Robinson, Jones, Singletary, and Gibson are the backs. You're looking at Colin, Samuel Moore, Cooper, and Jaden Reed are the receivers here. Craig, I don't know if you're texting with Tim or what you're doing right now. Take us through the process here of who you're looking at here at the 16:09.
Right now we're looking at adding to our wide receivers and looking at a couple of young players. Right now we can't find somebody that really matches up with some of the in fact, I'm going to have to draft this guy before we run out.
It's a shame Bryce Young is off the board. That's all I'm talking.
Right. We were looking at Bryce.
Wow.
We decided to go young with the Pittsburgh wide receiver Roman Wilson.
So with the Roman Wilson pick, it's an interesting one in Pittsburgh this year. An interesting offense because gone is Kenny Pickett. They have Russell Wilson there now. Gone as Deontay Johnson. Roman Wilson could step into a lot of targets there. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't know if they have a Deontay Johnson replacement, but if they do, Craig, it might be Roman Wilson.
Well, that's where we're kind of hoping. Actually, we were also looking at Marvin Mims there, and he went right after that. So, somewhat interesting.
Oh, and Tim's there too now. I didn't even notice that. There he is.
This is how we prepare to do well during our regular draft. So we just hope you invite us back next year to help us prep for the regular season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is good stuff. So we get Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks, the dynamic duo who is on deck here in the 17th round. 17:04. You guys are now on the clock here. Take us through this pick. You guys can talk it out.
Oh, we got it. It's done.
Well, we haven't picked it yet, but we're looking running back.
6 or
And
7, your choice. Do it.
Oh, I'm gonna do quick.
It's done. All right.
I think it went through.
Now we can chat all night. We got to.
You got quite a ways now till your 18th round pick.
Yeah.
So Tank Bigsby is the pick here, Craig.
Yeah. Everything I've been reading about Etienne, obviously still a great player, but they're going to try to reduce his workload a little bit. And I've been reading really good things about Bigsby. So, and we know he's an injury away from being a full-time back. And that's kind of what we're looking at here to add to our running back stable.
And you always get sniped where you're ready to pick a guy, he gets picked, and then you have to pivot, right? So we could have about 12 other guys on our team, but we had to pivot, and then we pivoted, and then we continued.
Pivot.
Tim, who are some of the guys that you got sniped on tonight?
We wanted Jordan Love. He got picked right in front of us, so then we changed to a Bears build, which I don't know how that'll work out, but Greg's high on Caleb Williams, so we'll see how that goes.
As a Packer fan, I am high on the Bears offense this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, we thought the stack with Komet, and we got DJ Moore earlier, and then obviously Caleb Williams.
And DJ had some big games last year with a less than superior quarterback. So,
and I did remember the comment. I don't remember the person that mentioned that. The Tua didn't make a lot of sense for these guys. They should have took Deshaun Watson.
That's Turk. That's not me. That's Turk. That was not me, fellas. This is Farrell speaking, and I want you to know it was not Farrell.
All right. Well, it was heard in the background as we were making picks, and we did look at Deshaun Watson, and then we just realized he really sucks. So we thought we'd.
But I do need a massage. Quite honestly.
Hey, nothing wrong with a good massage.
This is good stuff. Tim Marks with the glass of wine, speaking his mind here tonight as you guys build your Pros versus Joe's juggernaut. This is fantastic. So let's talk about. I want to talk about rounds 8 through 15. Once you guys had that, and Craig, I'll throw this to you. Once you guys had those 5 receivers in the first 7 rounds, did you make the concerted decision of like, okay, now let's pound these. Let's get our quarterback squared away. Let's get our tight end squared away. The fact that we didn't draft any of them in the top 7, did you guys feel like you needed to draft 3 at both of those positions?
Oh, that's 100%. Going with quantity instead of quality. Again, I really wanted Love. I think we're going to be okay with Caleb Williams. But, yeah, tight ends, again, when you don't get one of the top 3 or 4 guys, you're looking at quantity and just hoping for some big weeks out of some of them.
And it is a best ball format, so you just need him to, in the Tua pick, he's gonna win 2 or 3 weeks being the best quarterback. Right. We'll see how it turns out.
How on a scale of it's specifically talking about the running backs. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 you have no faith and 10 you think it's rock solid, Craig, what rating would you give your running back stable now of Bijan Robinson, Aaron Jones, Devin Singletary, Antonio Gibson, and Tank Bigsby?
Probably about a 7, and that's mostly because we think Bijan's going to be huge this year. Yeah. And then we're just, it was a hero running back build basically, so we're hoping one of the other guys pops up on a given week.
And we were hoping to get Mitchell, and then got sniped near the end there, so that to back up.
If McCaffrey goes down, you're saying?
McCaffrey goes down.
Right, yeah.
We were going to take Algier, and then he got picked just to back us up on Bijan. But you can't have everybody, Craig says.
Right. Well, that's true. You can't. I mean, if you could, this would not be fun covering the draft. It's more fun than 12 players or 12 drafters.
And we'd win. Everybody'd win. If they just
So I'm trying to see here. I look at it, Tim, and Tim, you talked about wanting Love there. Even though you didn't get him, you still went with Musgrave in the 1009. So you have both Reed and Musgrave on the team. Can you tell us a little bit about why you like that Musgrave pick at 1009 tonight?
Well, one, I think he's going to be good. Two, everybody likes to pair the quarterback. I mean, it's a best ball format, and Musgrave's not going to be good every week, but he's going to be good 3 or 4 weeks. So,
right.
And you pick the best score.
So now, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong. Were you guys in Pros versus Joes last year as well?
Oh boy, yeah, we were.
Yeah, but we weren't prepared.
It's okay. So
this year we were more prepared, but it could end up the same way. So that's why I said I hope you invite us back next year. I'll send you a bottle of wine. Maybe we can have a bottle of wine together.
That sounds good.
I'll tell you this. Write it down. We're going to make this country great again.
Oh boy,
The wine's really starting to hit. I love it.
Guys, Tim, Bill Hollywood in the YouTube chat wants to know what kind of wine that is.
Red wine.
Red wine.
The best wine.
He keeps it next to the
Never
shoe
did.
polish in the closet. It's great stuff. It really is.
Yeah.
It didn't come out of a box. Came out of a bottle. Had a cork.
Okay, so it's good. It's at least good red wine.
and
Allegedly.
this is Scotch, and it comes from Scotland.
That's true. Yes, exactly. The Stealing Bananas podcast hosts are on the clock right now. That's Shawn, Siegele, and that is Ben Gretch. They will be making their 18th round pick. Why is that significant? Because Magnuson and Marks are up next at the 1809. Can you tell us a little bit about, and again, you don't have to say players' names because I don't want, and bear in mind that the Stealing Bananas guys are doing their own show right now, so they can't hear what you're saying. What are you thinking here with your 18th round pick?
A really, really good player.
Yeah. That's available.
Are there any left at this
Next,
point?
Kyron Williams.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's funny when you look back and how late Ferguson went last year and a number of players. By the time we get ready closer to the season and draft, it's amazing the fluctuation where players get drafted, right?
Right.
As the rankings come out, I look at our team that we drafted last year, and all of them are ranked in the top 60 players this year. And we got them late last year.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, it's fine.
So
All right.
Magnuson and Marks on the clock here at the 1809. I believe the envelope is on its way to the commissioner, and he will be announcing the pick shortly.
It's going to be a very short player.
But he's shifty.
He is fast. Oh, I didn't draft him yet. Here he comes. Here he comes.
Oh, Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore, the pride of Atlanta now, as he is a Falcon. So you're looking at Rondale Moore here at the 1809 joining.
And did you notice we bought your merch?
You did?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
And we have the coffee.
You can't see the shirt.
Oh, look at that. You got the Pros versus Joes and the Pros versus Joes coffee mug.
And we get the larger coffee cup next year because I like the 12-ounce pour.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, how much wine can you fit in that coffee mug? That's the real
damn near a half a bottle.
Lovely.
You guys have been awesome here. I'll keep you on one more pick since you're only 2 picks away from being on the clock again. Rondale Moore, the player that you guys go with in the 18th round. Good best ball selection here, Craig. Where Moore on those spike weeks could really help you out.
That's what we hope for. That's the idea.
85th receiver off the board is Rondale Moore tonight. Joining, let's see, who would have been Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and now Moore as the Falcons receivers who've been selected. To kick off the 19th round, Jalen Tolbert went to Shane Hallam. Zach Ertz off the board to Ron Chan as his third tight end. Jared Smola, the draft shark from Draft Sharks, is picking third right now. You guys are on the clock after that. Andrews, Conklin, and Mayer are the tight ends that Smola has selected. His last four picks in order: Will Levis in the 15th, Marvin Mims, who you guys were considering in the 16th round. You go with Roman Wilson instead, and then Mims goes the pick after that. Khalil Herbert, 1703. I think I just took him in the Scott Fish Bowl a few days ago as well. And then Michael Mayer at the 1810. Smola now with about 20 seconds on the clock, and then it's up to Magnuson and Marks. Guys, what are you thinking as now Deontay?
It was a highly recommended pick by your staff there, and so we're going to go with it.
Okay, here's the pick. The pick is in at the 1904 for Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks. They take Eric Gray, running back from the New York Giants. Again, just another.
Terry is not good. He's going to be gone by the 6th week.
Right.
We're listening. I like that.
So you're
not stopping the brain from working.
What do they call it? Stat cuffing the Giants.
Bad running backs. So.
Well, you might think they're bad running backs. Talk to me in December or January. You guys are near the top of the leaguerboard here. Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks, so good to have you aboard tonight. Thanks so much for coming in and hanging out. Cheers to you, Tim. You guys be good. Good luck winning the $1 million in the FFPC main event this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you guys.
That is
Craig, guys.
Craig Magnuson and Tim Marks hanging out with us, having some fun.
Our best caller so far.
Yeah, it was fun. That was good stuff. It's rare that we have. I mean, it's happened before, but to have two, one of these co-managed teams on camera at the same time is always special when you can make that happen. So they made it happen. And as we're coming through the home stretch of this draft here tonight, Farrell, you think Deontay Foreman is being underdrafted? It seems like every time he goes to a new team, he ends up taking over that backfield. And now he's in a situation in Cleveland where we don't have a timetable for Nick Chubb. And I know Jerome Ford put up some numbers last year, but Foreman in the 19th screams a value to me, man.
Yeah, why not? That's the depth of my analysis there.
Right.
Why
I didn't realize that okay, now I got the board right. Sorry about that, everybody.
Thank you, brother.
On the YouTube feed, I forgot to scroll down because I was living vicariously drinking wine through Tim Marks tonight, and I didn't realize what I was doing.
The Jerome Ford Foreman double tap makes a lot of sense.
Ford is a player, and I'll look where he went tonight. Jerome Ford ends up going as 10:05 tonight to Bill Van Ormer. So 9 full rounds ahead of Foreman. Pretty easily that you can get both these guys on their team. Guys, I am quickly losing faith on Nick Chubb. Farrell, how do you feel about him?
I think Nick Chubb will be back during the season. I think he will be a good pick, not in this format, because I think availability in an every week score is a good thing. If you're getting pushed out of some of the big line backs and you've got backs that may have bye weeks, double-digit bye weeks, which there are a lot of them this year, I think Nick Chubb could make some sense for you in that situation.
The 19th round is completed. Jalen Tolbert. I feel weird asking you about a Cowboy, but I'm going to do it anyway. 1901. I mean, obviously, we know the running back situation in Dallas. We know that Prescott is in a contract year. I think that it is wheels up for a lot of receivers here in Dallas. And when you consider this best ball format, how do you feel about Jalen Tolbert going to Shane Hallam in the 19th round?
He's a very highly target of mine. I mean, he's a guy that, Brandon Cook's getting up there in age. We all know his injury history. And Tolbert came on a little bit at the end of the season. I know it's that, people don't like to look back at last year, but they added nobody. And, there's always that, practice squad guy and that, undrafted rookie who makes a scene in training camp. But Tolbert has a rapport with Dak. And at this 19th round, I mean, you could easily be getting a wide receiver 3 behind, Lamb and behind Ferguson in the 19th round on an offense that we knew was going to throw the ball a ton. So I like Tolbert a lot. With all these guys here, there's a lot of receivers in this round that are very, very solid picks, all things considered.
I get, I'm listening to the 1st and 15 podcast with Abib Agbatoba. I feel like those guys are pretty high on Greg Dortch this year, Farrell. And correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we talk up Greg Dortch quite a bit last year during the season?
My first time on the show that I talked about Greg Dortch, I talked him down. And then I looked at the way he plays football, and I talked him up. And you can understand why Arizona let Rondell Moore lead. Dortch is the kind of guy you want in that situation. I disagree with Terp. It makes general sense on Tolbert, but I don't think Tolbert can play. So I'm looking further down that depth chart. Maybe that's something we can do tomorrow night because everything else Terp says is right. I just don't think everything else he says about
Javon Baker is a name we didn't talk about.
The situation is correct. I just don't think Tolbert knows how to learned how to play in the NFL.
Very fair take before 19th round. I'll take my chances.
Yeah, but let's take our chances with somebody that has a real.
I would take Javon Baker over him. Javon Baker through all my FFPC draft so far is my highest end receiver.
See, Terp, why didn't you tell the listeners that before I had to reach in with both hands and grab it out of your soul?
You know what's interesting?
How about the intrigue?
We were intrigued by how Derek Brown was going to fill the second half of his roster here, guys, after going with all those running backs here. And look at what he did. A ton of rookie pass catchers here. Jermaine Burton in the 11th round. Ben Sinnott in the 13th. A.D. Mitchell in the 14th. Pearsall in the 15th. Luke McCaffrey in the 17th. And the aforementioned Javon Baker goes in the 19th. Paired up with Drake May. So you get that cheap New England stack there. And when you look at
Jermaine Burton right above Cousins.
Yeah, Burton as well. I thought I said Burton. Maybe I didn't. I apologize.
You did.
But all those guys right there, all those rookies, this is how you win. Because if two of these rookies hit, when you consider that huge running back glob that he put together in rounds 4 through 9, and Farrell, we were praising his Chase and London picks to kick off the thing. Now this becomes about which one of these rookie running backs or rookie receivers is going to hit because of two of them.
He had too many running backs and now he's got too many receivers. He's like playing a guy.
He has too many receivers.
He's like playing a guy now with 24 picks because he's made really good ones. Terp is right.
I think he's recovered exceptionally.
Yes, these guys have a lot of upside. Pearsall might be my favorite, and you're a big fan of DeMarcus Robinson.
I am.
And the other thing we should point out too, when we had Debro on earlier, he was talking about how what a big fan he was of the Washington offense. He gets sniped on McLaurin, but then look what he does. Jaden Daniels in the 7th round, Brian Robinson in the 9th, Ben Sinnott in the 13th, and Luke McCaffrey in the 17th. So he's got a huge portion of that
exceptional group of young receivers, especially in this format.
He has the
Jason and London pan out.
This
is a team that could really be storming late that could take this league.
He got everybody but Corley. And I'm not saying
Corley's not on Washington, though. That's the point. Oh, you're saying all the receivers. I get it.
Receivers.
Yeah, I got it.
Derek, that was a feeble attempt at humor. That's what that was. But no, there are I love these receivers. Pearsall's my favorite.
Yeah, Pearsall's really good. And I should look to see if he got pushed up tonight. He does, because he's a Niner. So he goes 2 rounds ahead of ADP tonight. Well, about a round and a half ahead of ADP. Just wild. Every Niner got super high respect from these drafters, except for one Brock Purdy, who tumbled 2.5 rounds. We're coming up on the final few picks of the draft here tonight. The 20th round, I mean, you see Russell Wilson and J.J. McCarthy go off the board. Khalif Raymond is a player that I've heard whispered by some high-stakes players as a favorite late-round target in the best ball format. You see Rob Viera end up with, out of his 5 final picks, 3 of them are Giants. So he builds a cheap stack at the end with Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, and then Jalen Hyatt in the 20th round. Trey Sermon, Terp, I know you mentioned him before. Jonathan Taylor was a 2nd-round pick. His backup doesn't go until round 20 tonight. Trey Tucker, Farrell, are you a big fan of him at the 2011 tonight?
Pros definitely should be leading the Joes, and nobody's talking about this player, and nobody's drafted him. And this is one of the biggest double-digit steals of the whole draft. This is a player that this team is counting on for big things this year.
Ron Chan grabs Trey Tucker at the 2011 tonight, Mr. Irrelevant, for night 2 of the Pros versus Joes IPA League number 2 this year. Will Dissly, the final pick, the tight end, is going to wrap things up tonight. So a fun draft tonight. Once again, we saw the quarterbacks fall a little bit. We saw the tight ends pushed up even more. This draft, apparently, everybody lives in San Francisco because they love the Niners tonight. That's my takeaway. Derek Brown, we had him on. builds that running back up, that running back room up through round 9, pounds the rookie receivers late. That's going to be fun to watch. We didn't really talk a whole lot about Siegele and Gretch's team from the 5 spot, but that's another similar approach. You see the 2 tight ends drafted high, Kincaid and Bowers. You see 5 receivers go off in the first 10 rounds, and then they pound the running backs late. Lloyd, Vidal, Davis, Irving. That's 4 consecutive rookie running backs. They also get Garendo, another rookie running back in the 19th round. It all depends upon the health of Breece Hall and how well he's going to be able to stay together, because the rest of the team looks pretty good as long as one of those rookie running backs hit. A fun draft tonight. Farrell, any parting words, anything that stood out to you?
Just the disparity from last night's draft, and I think that's what makes these shows so much fun. And as we get later, we've got 4 more of these coming, right?
Right.
As we get later, perhaps they may fall in line. I see drafters pushing up Curtis Samuel. As I look, the Godwin pick was a real steal in the 7th round. Terp and I think, agreed about Palmer. And there's just these guys are having a real good time with this, but they're serious about it too. And they want to win with their guys. So that's how I like the way they're drafting. And my favorite team, I'm going to pick
Team 8.
I'm going to pick Billy Van Ormere to win the whole thing.
Terp, I know you've looked at these rosters. Do you have any favorite teams from tonight's draft?
Team 8 is definitely the popular pick. I also like what Team 10 did.
Glenn Lowy, for sure. Yeah.
Much better showing from the Joes tonight. I mean, a lot of more well-established guys, but still, overall, I think that Joes might be a little better tonight. I like what the Team 5, those guys know what they're doing, obviously.
You're going to get accused of being Captain Obvious. Of course the Joes are better. What do you mean?
Last night they weren't.
Right. Oh, well, that's still be too big.
It's one draft at a time. Everything's going to change. I still haven't picked my winner.
Bonky, how many years has a Joe won this in a row?
I'm shocked by that.
This will be 6 years coming into this year. Joe.
So this year will be the lucky number 7.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
Can't wait till we get to a double-digit Joe win streak.
That'd be fantastic. I think the other thing that kind of worked against the pros tonight a little bit, when you have Rob Viera from the 6th spot and Glenn Lowy from the 10th spot, scooping up value and building these, being familiar with the FFPC format and scooping up value when they could. It's difficult for other people to, some of these pros to pick up some of these players that maybe they targeted. We heard Derek Brown when he got upset that Bill Van Ormer sniped him. Magnuson and Mark said they were getting sniped all night as well, although they are FFPC Joes, but they're still talented drafters. So a lot of fun tonight, guys. The last thing I'll bring up, just because and I'll scroll up a little bit so everybody can see Team 12, but I don't think we mentioned Ryan Cleary's team from the 12 spot much, if at all, tonight. If we could just look at his squad here. I'll scroll up a little bit more. I'm sorry. I'm still learning this newfangled computer thing. But you look at his squad. He goes 3 receivers in the first 4 rounds, and Nakua, Evans, and Neighbors. He's got Laporta in there. He gets Mahomes in the 5th round. Kirk and Adunze mixed in with David Montgomery, Chase Brown, Trey Benson, and Rico Dowdle in the mid rounds to build up that running back room. Josh Downs, Mayfield, Jalen Wright. He gets 2 tight ends late, Juwan Johnson and Colby Parkinson. P. Ryan, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jalen McMillan, and Kendrick Bourne. So I like the receivers late there. This comes down to the running backs. Did he do enough at running back, Terp, to make you think that he's got a good shot at winning this league?
I don't think so. I like some of the running backs he drafted, but David Montgomery is my running back 1. I know it's his best ball and all that cool stuff, but he presents a little bit more questions than I think that drafters are giving him credit for this year. I love Chase Brown. We know that. Trey Benson, I think, is going to get the job eventually, but James Conner's not going anywhere unless he gets hurt. Rico Dowdle, we don't know. I mean, Zeke is going to be annoying if they add somebody. Rico might not even be part of the offense. And Jalen Wright, he has a 2-way go if things go wrong with Mostert or A-Chain, which is a good thing because he'll have a value. But I think the running back room will set this drafter behind the 8 ball. Everything else I like. But The running back room, I think, is going to be the issue.
And everything, it's just got to fall into place, right, Farrell? I mean, if Gibbs or Moss or Connor or, Elliott or any of these guys miss time, then all of a sudden he's looking pretty good. I don't know, Farrell, your thoughts on Team 12?
When you go this high with these kind of established drafters who put together runs of players, when you go this high on quarterback and tight end, you're asking for trouble, and that's what he ran into.
We're always asking for more entertainment, and we'll have it for you tomorrow night from two of the best guys in the business. Farrell Elliott, KFFSC.com is where to register to play in the main event in Cincinnati and Louisville, as well as online, but we want to see you live. And Dave Terpoli, the 11-time FFPC League champion. Follow him on the X at Dave Terp. Gentlemen, great job tonight. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and we will talk with you tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
See you guys.
See you later. That is Dave Terp, and that was Farrell Elliott joining me on the program tonight. Always good stuff to hear commentary from those established players as well as FFPC analysts. I want to thank our guests tonight who hopped aboard: Derek Brown, Ron Chan, Craig Magnuson, and Tim Marks. Also, Darren Armani, the FFPC, our producer and mutual friend Rob, audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and of course, all our viewers and listeners that tuned in tonight. Really good conversation in the YouTube, Facebook, and X chats too. So keep up that great work, because we're going to be doing this tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We have league number 3 for the FFPC Pros versus Joes. The Joes tomorrow night: Matt and Andrew Stone, Noel Coombs and Joey DeFilippis, Rob Linkowski and Robert Finkel. Rob Linkowski has been on several FFPC podcasts with me before. He's a really talented guy. Richard Lowe is actually going to be on, along with Bob Titman. They are drafting from the 7th spot tonight. We just talked with those guys in the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour a week or two ago, so go back and watch that on the FFPC YouTube channel in case you missed it. One of the best ball drafters in the FFPC, Michael Zuka, is drafting tomorrow night from the 9 spot, and a guy who's been in the YouTube chat the last couple of nights, who I've done a lot of shows with over the years, a guy who's won a lot of titles in the FFPC, Jared Hines, will round out the Joes. So it's another strong Joe squad that's going to be drafting tomorrow. For the pros, Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell from RotoViz and Dynasty League Football, respectively, they're sharing a team tonight. Dwayne McFarland from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life is going to be drafting with us. Brian Drake and Matt Donnelly teaming up for a fantasy points team that's drafting out of the 6th spot. 1 week seasons, Mark Garcia, a.k.a. Hilo, he's drafting from the 8th spot tomorrow night. Bob Harris, longtime fantasy football drafter from Football Guys, is picking from the 10 spot. And Brandon Murchison, who I noticed was also in the YouTube chat, who's done a show with me before too on the Better Sports Network, he will be drafting 12. So a lot of really good personalities, a lot of talented drafters. It's everything you want in Pros versus Joes number 3, again, getting underway at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Getting underway tonight, or I should say closing out at midnight Pacific Time tonight, is the FFPC Main Event early draft slot deadline. Remember, if you want your draft slot in the FFPC Main Event as you chase that $1 million grand prize, make sure that you are all paid up by midnight Pacific Time tonight. Have those teams squared away, and you will find out what draft slot you have on July 29th. Doesn't even matter if you're drafting in September, live or online. You're going to know where you're picking. You'll have a full month plus of prep time in order to make sure that you're doing everything you can do to win that $1 million grand prize. Main event slow and live drafts are often running. Multiple Fantasy Pros Championship drafts are filling each and every day, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure, if you want to take advantage of winning $1 million grand prize and only have to pony up $350, do that at myffpc.com. We have the 10 o'clock draft filled. That is going off in 8 minutes. However, there still are 8 spots left in the midnight draft tonight that actually Bryce is commissioning. So make sure you're popping and signing up for that. $1 million grand prize. And you can be part of the weekday giveaway as well. So if you register and draft prior to Friday this week, as long as you draft Monday through Thursday, you'll be in the drawing for 3 free Fantasy Pros Championship teams that will be awarded on Friday. So another good reason to draft is if $1 million wasn't enough, this is another reason that you want to draft tonight. Best Ball Tournament and the Superflex Best Ball Tournament also available at myffpc.com. Dynasty Startups and Empire Dynasty Startups also available at myffpc.com. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. We will sign off for now, but we will talk with you at 10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night for Pros versus Joes draft number 3. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. Be good. Stay safe. Talk to you tomorrow.